I'm going to talk about one of my favorite subjects right now, mulch. The word mulch is actually a noun and a verb, okay? You're going to go out and do some mulching as a verb, or you're going to go out and put down mulch. Mulch is really anything that's put over the soil surface that helps cover up that soil surface and protects it. Protects the soil surface from drying out too fast, so it's a great water saving component. It also adds organic matter to that soil surface so that as the microorganisms break it down, it's adding tilth and adding health to the soil. So some people use rocks, old tires and stuff like that as a mulch, but I've always liked to use organic mulches to feed the soils. So I'm going to show you some different types of mulches today. A couple of them that they have here is one is a chunk bark. Now the thing about bark is that, bark is what protects the tree when it's growing. And so in itself, bark is made to be semi-impenetrable so that insects and diseases can't get into it. But by using chunk bark and using it thick enough, usually about 3 or 4 inches, you really can form a pretty impervious barrier that weeds have a tough time growing through. It takes a long time for that product to break down. Then you have your medium fine bark, which you can see is not as chunky, has some more fines in it. This one works pretty well for areas that you don't want to have such a chunky bark. And then they even have fine bark, which you can see is even broken down even more. It has some chunks in it, but a lot of it is just fines, and that's actually will break down and add to the soil very quickly. So between the three, this takes the longest to break down, this takes the little less time, and this will break down the quickest, which means you would probably have to replenish it a little more often. One challenge we have found with the fine barks is that when it's really fine, it actually can pack itself down to a point that water becomes semi-impervious, almost becomes hydrophobic, meaning that the water cannot penetrate that, and it actually starts forming a barrier, just because that's what bark does when it's on a tree and such. So really for the barks, these are still acceptable. What I'd rather use is a composted bark, which is actually the same type of product, but now it's been broken down. And the beauty of this is that instead of these products right here having to take nutrients from the soils in order to break themselves down in order to be able to compost, this is already starting to go through the compost process, which means that this product will actually start feeding your soils right away, which means you can start building your healthy soils. You can see that it's a little chunkier so that it looks more like a bark type product, so it looks more like a mulch compared to just the regular compost. So you can see the compost, it's almost a soil type product. Still works great as a mulch, but when a lot of people put it down on top of the soil, it almost looks like a soil, and they might not feel that it looks like a mulch. Where the composted bark actually has those chunks in it that people are looking for to make it look more like a mulch. Again, either one of these is perfectly acceptable, depends on what kind of look you want and what you're trying to do. For the finer compost like this, great for perennial beds, vegetable gardens, and stuff like that to mulch around, where usually other materials like woody shrubs and stuff like that, you want to have more of a chunky mulch that you would not have to replace as often. One of my all-time favorite mulches for fall time is just leaves, just piling down leaves. You can see these are already starting to compost themselves down a little bit, adds organic matter down. When they're raised up around the plants, stuff like that, actually forms a nice layer to protect the soil, and also when the rain hits it, it allows it to trickle down through here, and then every year this just renews itself and forms beautiful soil. So a great organic matter to use, especially fall time. Take advantage of all the free leaves. My all-time favorite mulch is arborist chips, is what they call them. And this is actually made from the tree trimmings that the tree companies go around and do when they're doing their work. A lot of times it has greens and browns in it. So it has some of the woody material from the plant, but also has some of the leaves and everything that was also with the plant when they were doing the trimming on it. And by having greens and browns, you're actually, again, starting to form compost right there by the arborist chips. They're nice and light, so you can get a nice thick amount of mulch really quickly, and they allow all that water to flow right down through it and get into the soil system. The beauty about the arborist chips is that most Successful gardens are fungal-based soils, and this will bring the fungal base back to it when it starts forming the mycelium and such. So to be able to put a product like this down over your soil surface, around your woody plantings and your shrubs and stuff like that, not only conserves the water, but starts doing the soil building and starts forming the fungal-based matter that those plants will really thrive in. So Arborist Chips, they're usually free if you can find a tree company. One of the best mulches you can put down on your yard if you can get a hold of them.